have a copy of the frequently asked question? All right. Hey, see, that's why we do these tests. Okay, so we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Before we do, does everybody have a copy of the frequently asked questions and answers? Okay, perfect. If you do not, we have a pile up there and we have one in the back as well. We also have some question forms that are available if you have any questions or statements. We ask that you write them down in writing. We'll talk more about that in a little bit so that we can be sure to get everything down. Thank you. Good evening again. One more announcement. If you feel like you are too crowded, there's also room at Jim Riggs where we are streaming this as well. And you'll also have an opportunity to write down your questions there as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, or good evening, everybody. We're really glad you are here. I know that we're not here on good terms right now or for good, enjoyable reasons, but I would like to start this meeting. And before I say any more words, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. So if you would all stand. Thank you. Thank you all for showing up tonight. Showing up matters. It's one of my mottos. And your presence, whether you are here or at the Jim Riggs Center, is valued. I'm grateful that you are here to show how much we care about this community and what's happened to our community. We knew the drawdown was coming. No one anticipated the ramifications that we are seeing. The extent of these ramifications we did not anticipate. As you are, I'm feeling very strongly about what has happened to the reservoir and our community, our wildlife. And because of this, it's an emotionally charged topic. And we need to be wise in how we approach our conversation. So I'm asking each of us to maintain decorum, be respectful. And this is an informational meeting. It's the first of multiple informational meetings we will hold. The city staff will provide some information, and then the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will present. And we have received many questions online as people saw the request went out to submit your questions. Those questions we will try and address tonight. We are asking everybody to write down any question they may have. This not only helps us keep order, but it also helps us make sure we've answered the questions that are out there. We will post the questions and answers on our Facebook page and our website. And I'm going to thank you again for being here. And I'm going to pass it on to City Manager Kelsey Young to give you guys some information.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to echo what Mayor Coleman just said about how much we appreciate all of you being here tonight. Go. So, or at the Jim Riggs Center. I'm going to be sharing a presentation with you all as soon as we can get that on uploaded. And then I also want to ask anybody who is online, because we have over 100 people online, please go ahead and turn off your cameras and mute your microphones. That will help us with a clearer sound, and it will also give us some better bandwidth as well, so that everybody can hopefully hear and won't have too many technical issues. There we go. So as the mayor already mentioned, we're going to go through a little bit about our water quality, and then we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the Army Corps of Engineers. First up, I'd like all of us at the table to just introduce ourselves really quickly. So again, I'm Kelsey Young, City Manager.
Jason Ogden, Chief of Police.
Mayor Susan Coleman.
I'm Dustin Bankson. I'm the Operations Project Manager for the Corps of Engineers Willamette Valley and Rogue Basin projects.
I'm Greg Springman. I'm the Public Works Director with the City of Sweet Home.
Stephen Haney, Utility Manager for the City of Sweet Home.
Thank you all very much. Adam? So couple just basic pieces of housekeeping. You all should have had the option to fill out any questions or comments. There's another stack up here. There's a stack in the back. There's a stack as you go. We would love to fill out as many as you'd like. We'd like to hear all of your comments and questions, and that way we can make sure to give you a well thought out response. And as the mayor has already mentioned, we will have additional information sessions. This is just the first of many. So we will be answering those questions as we go as well. So I'm going to hand this back over to our mayor for this particular slide, and then I will take it over again. Thank you.
So like I said, we might all be feeling kind of emotional about this situation or very emotional about this situation. We just need to keep a cool head. So please remain respectful. Allow our presenters to share their information. If you can't hear, please let us know. We don't have the best mics in. All right, there we go.
And on top of that, Governor Tina Kotek really also is trying to key into this and
Thank
help.
you. Thank you. We'd also, we'd like you to please refrain from raising your voice if you're speaking. Please also write your questions down. We know we can do this and remain respectful, but we want to hear from you and we want to be able to answer your questions. I just need you to know that. Okay. Kelsey, City Manager Young, is going to speak now. She has a very soft voice, and I'm going to try and get her to speak into the mic even further than what she does already. Okay.
All right, I'm going to do my best. I won't be able to keep this up too long, but I will do my best. So, Adam, next slide, please. Sometimes when we have a lot of people online, everything starts getting bogged down. So we went through introductions. As I mentioned, I'm going to go through our presentation, then we're going to go to the Army Corps presentation, then we're going to talk about some of the questions we've already received, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about next steps. Let's go ahead to the next one. So we already talked about this. Please submit your questions in writing. Please review the frequently asked questions handout. We're trying to answer as much as we can. This set of questions is just from the city staff. If you've already submitted questions also that are about the Army Corps, we will answer them tonight as we can. If they do not get answered, we will be coming back and answering them in the future, both online, on social media, and in one of our next information sessions, because we do want to give you as much information as we can. Okay, so some of the just key takeaways from all of this. The drinking water is currently testing within the required parameters. And the drinking water has actually, because we haven't had a lot of rain, we've seen a decrease in turbidity recently. So we are currently testing at about the same levels that we were before this happened, as of just the past couple days. We have 3 filters in use at the water treatment plant, and the water treatment plant was newly constructed in 2009. So here are some terms and definitions. Bear with me because there's a word in here that I can almost never say correctly. So the drawdown, we all are talking about the green peter drawdown, and what that means is the operation of lowering the water level of a reservoir. MGD, million gallons per day. NTU, this is the one. So, all right, nephelometric turbidity units. Hopefully that was right. Used to indicate the relative clarity of the water. OHA, we talk about them a lot. They are the Oregon Health Authority. That is who we go by to making sure that we are providing water that they consider to be safe. Turbidity, a measure of water clarity. High turbidity results in cloudier water. We have been experiencing much higher turbidity recently. We'll talk about that more in just a second. WTP, water treatment plant. So timeline. As I think many of you are aware, this started even before 2018. I think the initial review was in 2008. And then in March of 2018, the complaint filed alleging violations of the Endangered Species Act. In August 2020, the court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs on all claims. In September 1st, 2021, the judge issued an injunction ordering the courts to carry out specified measures to improve fish passage and water quality in the Willamette River Basin, which also includes the Green Peter Dam. And then in late summer 2023, the initial drawdown began. We started seeing some of the impacts, I think, around in late July. So you started seeing them in May 31st? Okay. So history of the water treatment plants. This one was built in 2009. We had 3 media sound filters in use. We recently just revamped one of our 3rd filter. So now we have all 3 of them going, and that's been helping with all of this. We have 3 reservoir sites with multiple tanks, 5.5 million gallon capacity citywide. And most of the time, the plant produces award-winning water. In 2023, we just received the Oregon Association of Water Utilities Award and the Best Tasting Water Award. And in 2010, Cascade to Coast Best Tasting Water Contest. We've had a few others. We were planning on going and being a part of the national competition in February. So we will see how that goes. But water is still testing within the required parameters, and that's one of the key takeaways I do want everybody to be aware of. So our staff, I have to give kudos to our staff, particularly our water team. They have, and our public works director, everybody has been very admirable in working around the clock in order to maintain operations and water quality. So our average turbidity for this time of year coming out of Foster Lake is around 10 NTUs. That's our normal conditions. I have heard that typically when we go up to rainy season, it's more around 40 NTUs, but from the past few weeks, the turbidity with the lake has been between 100 to 400 NTUs. So that's part of the reason why this has all been so challenging. So I'll try to speak up again. Thanks for the reminder. So right now we are doing better, but the turbidity will likely rise again if we have an additional heavy rainstorm. This can show a graph for the turbidity fluctuations. We're going to be mostly going through the highlights of all of this, but we will have this PowerPoint available so you can go back and study this graph as you would like. So this is just talking about how the average turbidity for rainy weather is around 40 NTUs. And since this event, our turbidity has been between 100 to 400 NTUs. And you can see, can you go back at them? You can see the big spikes that we've been experiencing. And so it's been very tough. And I know you all can see it in your water as well at home. So here is our water treatment plant. We have those 3 sand filters in use. The media, which is our sand, is replaced based on the usage of each filter. And all the filters, all the media and all 3 filters were replaced over the last 2 years. And Director Springman, the last one was just barely replaced, correct?
Correct. We replaced that 2 years ago. It was the last filter we needed to do. I mean, the first 2 were done 2 years ago, and then we did the last one last week.
Last week.
Yes.
And that has really helped us with being able to deal with the impact right now too. So the media replacement is based on usage and loss of sand as it breaks down. And it's tested in a lab for roughness because as it's rounded, it loses some of its efficiency. And then typically there's a 10-year life cycle, but the Sweet Home plant typically runs far below peak capacity because we tend to have really good water here. And that extends the life of the media. Even with the current conditions, it's possible that we will still be able to do a little bit better than the 10-year. We don't know yet. This is one of those things we're still trying to figure out. Okay, so drinking water impacts, because we know you all are worried about your drinking water, and I can understand that. I just moved here a year ago, and I've been drinking all the water, and I have, 2 kids. I'm a mother. We're all worried about the drinking water impacts, but it is still testing within the parameters of the Oregon Health Authority. Sodium hypochlorite is used to disinfect the water before it enters the distribution system. The state of Oregon requires levels at 0.2 parts per million or higher when water leaves the treatment plant. And we typically try to have its target at about 1 ppm, 1 part per million. Go ahead. So as of November 15th, we have been averaging around 1.044 ppm. Before that, if I remember correctly, we were more at around, before any of this happened, we tended to average more around 0.8%. So there was a little bit of an increase, but we do try to keep it around 1. We did get up to close to 1.5, I believe, at some point as we were trying to treat this, but we have managed to bring those chlorine levels back down. Our permit allows us to go all the way to 4. So that's just one of the things to understand, is that as far as the state is concerned, that is still an acceptable level, even though that's not something that we are trying to adhere to. We want to keep it at around that 1 ppm level. So we've been keeping our chlorine residual levels below 1.5 milligrams per liter. Again, our typical chlorine residual level is 0.8, and we have been higher, ranging between 0.8 to about 1.4. So if you've been noticing a little bit higher of a rate in chlorine, there has been. It's probably higher than what any of us are used to here. However, it is still lower than what is considered to be a concern. Okay, so typical testing protocol. Actually, Greg, do you want to, or Greg or Stephen, do you want to just take this one quickly and then I'll take it back?
So the typical testing protocol, daily we run the test, alkalinity, pH balance, turbidity, and chlorine results. Those are grab samples. We also have online analyzers that measure them continuously. Externally, we send back T samples, which include E. coli biweekly. We do 10 samples a month. We have 15 sample sites within the city. On a quarterly basis, we do our total organic compounds and alkalinity. The testing out in the field is done by the field is chlorine and color. We do additional testing on a less frequent basis, but that's our normal testing. Yeah, so we saw citizen concerns about mercury, so we got a sample, we sent it off. The lab doesn't expect the results to be back till mid-January, not mid-January, I'm sorry, mid-December. We are also just ordered additional testing for inorganic contaminants, all basically a panel of all the heavy metals. So we hope to see those in the near future. The laboratories do things at the speed the laboratories do things.
And I just want to add to that, that the metals that we're testing is not a normal requirement. It's something that is required like every 9 years. And so we're kind of stepping up and doing that because we've heard a lot of concerns from the public. And so we just want to ensure that we have the numbers that, so we're going to go ahead and run that process again. So.
So we are running through additional testing. Any type of other concerns that you all have, please do write them down. Please let us know. We're continuing to work through it. As Director Springman just mentioned, we are going above and beyond what is required for water testing, and we will have those results back to everybody as soon as we're able to. Okay, so looking at some test results, this one hopefully you all are familiar with. We are posting these results on social media and on our website each week. And if you have any questions, contact us. We're happy to go through them with you. So, Stephen, I'm going to turn this back to you for a second. If you can just walk everybody through both these test results and our most recent test results, and then I'll take it back over.
So essentially, on a daily basis, we do what we call grab samples, and those are the numbers that we report to the state. These are averages, min and max of those grab samples. It also lists the minimum and the maximum that the Oregon Health Authority, who regulates our drinking water, has set. For instance, for chlorine, the minimum was 1.17, the max was 1.87, with an average over the week of 1.42. So that's taking all the grab samples and averaging them in the min and max. The same for the IFE turbidity, that's the individual filter turbidity. So it's kind of a worst case scenario. It's whichever filter is producing the most dirty water at the time. So we take the minimum, the maximum, and then did the average on it. pH, same thing, grab samples with the range that the state allows. And actually, I may have made a mistake. I don't think 7 is actually our minimum. I think we can go down to 6.5 or 6. So my apologies. The max is 9. But again, it's the combination of all those grab samples averaged. The raw water turbidity, we had a graph that trends real time, and the 3-4 slides ago, you noticed on some of the peaks there were flat lines. Our graphs weren't even designed to read turbidity above 100. We actually had to bring a programmer in to reprogram our graphs so we could see peaks above 100, and that's why you'll see flat lines. Then we started seeing peaks above that number. But for that week, again, it was this grab samples 61 to 279, average of 147. Same thing here. You can see that we've tried to bring the chlorine down a little bit. The turbidity is coming down. We're everything's just improving a little bit. The numbers at the beginning of the week on 13th and 19th, I would say the 13th and 14th were actually higher numbers. And the last half of the week, our numbers are even better. So which brought the average down. I think the numbers next week will look more favorable. But again, everything is within the state guidelines, well within the state guidelines. It's just the raw water turbidities are numbers that we've never seen before. I have nothing to do with the fish.
We'll discuss that later. Let's let the staff wrap up the water quality report, and then we can discuss wildlife in a bit, okay?
So this is just for your reference. We looked at some other cities and we looked at what is considered to be the accepted range.
I missed the doctor's number. Call.
I'll just wait. Please remember to mute. Thank you. So the accepted range where you see the finished chlorine is 4, and the finished turbidity is being under 0.3 NTU, and the finished pH being under 9. And even with our current circumstances, we are still managing to be at about 1, and then our finished turbidity is not ideal, as you can see, but most of the time we're managing to keep it there. Our finished pH has still been below levels. And if you look at things like Portland, their average finished chlorine is over twice what we typically have. So, and their finished pH is also significantly higher. So unfortunately, we are more in keeping with some of the larger cities. So if you're feeling like your water feels uncomfortable and you want to have a filter, like what is often happened, or a Brita or something along those lines, please do what you feel comfortable with. But as you can see, we are still testing much better than most of those cities, including Eugene. So we're also looking at some other things. There's not a lot of data on everything that is being impacted right now. So we're looking at some other potentially impacted species. And so we'll be getting back to you with some more information on that, because this is another concern that we have as well. We are involved in discussing a lot of potential solutions with a lot of people right now. This has been very, very time consuming. This has been a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week role for me right now. And I know it has been for the mayor as well, and quite as well as staff. So we have been talking to Congresswoman Lori Chavez DeRemer, Governor Kotek's office, Senators Wyden and Merkley, Representatives Jamie Kate and Shelley Boshart Davis, all of our county commissioners, and we have some of them here today, which we greatly appreciate. The City of Albany, City of Lebanon, multiple other cities. I'm going to have a large meeting with other cities next week. Our Army Corps of Engineers, the South Santiam Watershed Council, multiple legal firms, multiple private businesses, many others, including concerned citizens. So there's a lot going on trying to discuss potential solutions as well. So what are our solutions? Honestly, we don't know just yet. We are still working through this, which is why we're going to continue to have these type of information sessions. So we are working on building a coalition, and it's with
Build the lake
multiple
back
cities.
up. That might fucking help.
We do ask that everyone remain respectful.
We need to
You guys,
maintain
brother.
decorum, and including those online. Now, keep in mind that the city of Sweet Home is not responsible, nor can we fill a lake back up. Okay, we would like to see what we can do to find avenues to ask for that to happen. And our desire, and I need you to remain respectful, and our we need to not be yelling questions from the audience. Okay, first of all, sir, I need you to be quiet. Okay, you and I
Build
can
the
talk
lake back
afterwards.
up. Fix this
So-
now. Stop poisoning us.
So Green Peter Reservoir is not inside city limits, which means as a city of Sweet Home, we have no jurisdiction over the Green Peter. Foster Lake is not in city limits. City limits end at Foster Lake. And we know that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers oversees both reservoirs. We would like to see the lakes filled back up, the Green Peter filled back up. That would be our goal. That would be our desire, and to see the wildlife not being impacted any longer. What we can control right now is our water quality, and that's what the city is focused on, is how to improve our water quality. When this action was discussed and when the courts decided on this action, they did not anticipate that water quality would be impacted. It was written that it would not be. That is what we can control as a city. We want to hear from you all, and we want the same thing as you guys want. We don't want the wildlife harmed any longer, and we'd like the Green Peter Reservoir filled back up again. But
So
right
how do
now,
I
we
sue this
need you-
conservational group?
Okay, if you're online, I need you to mute your microphone. Okay, we need you to ask your question. And we are serious about seeking solutions to this situation. So if we can move on, I'm going to move on to the solutions that we are looking for right now. I'm just going to read some of those to you. These are some of our ideas. I'd like you guys to continue to be respectful because I know you can be. Building a coalition, filing an injunction, litigation asking for the judge to overturn his ruling in discussion with county and other cities. A fish ladder will mostly support adult fish, or fish collectors can support juvenile fish. Looking at juvenile passage during drawdown and exploring other options. In adaptive management, we are wanting to look at all possible solutions, and we are pursuing them all as potential avenues. So our next steps, I'm going to let the city manager share the next steps.
Thank you. So if you have any questions, please do fill out the form. I know that there's a gentleman in the back there who also has a question. So Cecily, if you could get him a form, that would be wonderful. Okay, great, perfect. And then we are going to be reviewing and answering the questions that we have received tonight and today and over the next few days. And those will be posted online. We will also have an additional information session, probably more than one. We're going to be continuing our water testing, and as those results come back in, we're going to be sharing those results as well. And then we're still going to be having those ongoing discussions. We're already talking about building a coalition. We're already talking about what we might be able to do with getting the judge to overturn. These are a lot of conversations that are happening, and they're happening quite quickly. It's just all of this takes some time. And so we're finalizing our next path forward, and then we'll be coming back to everyone. So key takeaways: drinking water is currently testing within the parameters that OHA considers to be safe for use and consumption. We will continue the community dialogue and investigate next steps, which also include potential litigation.
OHA said wear masks too.
Please remain muted. Thank you. So keep going, Adam. We have just a couple more. All right, so as you have additional questions, we know you all are going to think of questions beyond tonight. Please contact cpretty at sweethomor.gov or use our online submission form. There's lots of ways to contact us.
Why didn't you fight this in court earlier?
So if you have any questions or comments now, please fill out a form or email us. If you're online, you can even put it in the chat.
Wouldn't do any good.
So they will be answered at a later date.
Put it off again.
They will be answered publicly. They'll be answered for everybody in a similar way to the way that we have done the Green Peter drawdown FAQs.
Okay.
What a joke.
We're going to hear from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers only if we can remain respectful. We're all upset about what's happening. We're all upset about what's happening, but in order for us to be able to be informed, we have to actually listen to the individuals who have the information. So if you can be quiet, I'll pass it on to Sir, no, that's not what I'm trying to say, and I want to hear from you. But in this forum, we need to hear from the officials who have caused this situation because they were, because of a federal injunction. Is that what it's called? Because of this situation, we need to hear from these officials so we can hear what has happened, and we want to hear from you. Okay, but this is not the right of emotions and different ideas on what can solve the situation, but also different questions on where is impacting them. And in order to hear everybody, we need to have them written down. We want to hear from you. He's just talking to staff right now because there's people online.
Hi, James.
So while we have folks queuing up the presentation, we've got a number of folks that are virtual tonight that are going to cover the technical details of why we're here tonight, what we're doing in compliance with the court order, and then attempt to answer. And I know this is the big question out there is what does this mean for the future? And we will not, and I am not naive enough to think that we're going to answer all of those questions tonight. Here's the thing I would ask you. I have been working in the Willamette Valley for over 30 years. I care about these lakes, care about these communities. I live below them. I recreate at them. So I understand your frustration and your concerns. Last time I saw a meeting this big and this busy was 2008 in this community. Does anybody remember what went on in 2008? We discovered we had issues with the spillway gates, and we had to pull the pool down at Foster in the middle of the summer. We worked through that with this community then, and we will work through this now. But the only way we can help at this point is if you allow us to present information to you to understand why we are where we are. I think we can dispel a number of things that I've seen circulated on social media that just aren't going on, but I ask for your patience and give us an opportunity to do that. I think we will answer a number of questions tonight. I know there will be more, and we will continue to work with Mayor Coleman in the city to do that. But like I said, I have been in this business, in this project for 30 years. I care about you. I care deeply about what we do, and we will do everything we can to answer your questions in a timely and responsible way. But give us that opportunity if you would, please. Adam, I think I see the presentation. So this is going to be a shared effort. And I do want to acknowledge there are other core representatives online. I know that our Chief of Operations Division for the Portland District is on and listening tonight. Kim Anderson, our Chief of Programs, Miss Liza Wells is also on tonight. And I probably can't ask you to scroll through the list, so I won't. But a number of other core folks are listening to your concerns tonight. We will be working with the city as they pull those questions in. We did get some in advance. Hopefully we're able to shape the presentation to speak to a number of the concerns that we hear in the community. But like I said, we know there will be more. We will continue to work to provide that clarity so that you all can decide, right, for yourselves what you need to do. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Catherine. Can you hear? I think Catherine and Selena and Greg can unmute themselves.
Yeah, hey, Dustin, can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. My name is Catherine Tackley. I work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Portland, Oregon, and focus mostly on these Willamette projects. I'm here to give you guys some facts, and we'll start with a little bit of background. Kelsey touched on this a little bit, but let me start from the 2008 BIOP. So in 2008, the Corps of Engineers was issued 2 biological opinions, one from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the other from National Marine Fisheries Service. And these BIOPs are documents that laid out a plan and list of actions the Corps needed to take to ensure the recovery of ESA-listed fish. Winter steel
Catherine, you need to unmute yourself again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There we
I think
go.
every time someone speaks up, everyone gets muted, and so that's muting me. I appreciate the audience participating in this discussion, but please let me get through some of these slides. I know a lot of you know the background, but some of you may not. So I appreciate everyone's respect as I carry on with these slides. Okay. So we didn't meet all of the deadlines in the BIOP due to a lot of complexities with downstream fish passage. And in 2018, we were sued. We lost that lawsuit and the judge ordered an injunction, which we're now carrying out. There were a lot of things in the injunction that ranges from conducting biological studies to building new structures to carrying out operations. And as you can see in this list, the ones that are bolded are the operations, and it's the deep drawdown that I want to talk about tonight. So there are actually 4 deep drawdowns that we're carrying out throughout the basin, not only at Green Peter, but we're also carrying out a deep drawdown at Cougar, one at Fall Creek, and one at Lookout Point. As you can see in this top portion of the slide, those drawdowns vary in depth, and that has to do with the configuration of the dam. We're trying to carry out drawdowns and lower the reservoirs to within a certain number of feet above the regulating outlets. And depending on the dam, those regulating outlets are at variable depths in the water column. So at Cougar, we can get close to the ROs at 27 feet, whereas Green Peter Dam, it's 142-foot additional drawdown from where we typically are in the winter. Again, why are we doing this drawdown? It's because the judge ruled that to avoid irreparable harm to threatened species, we needed to carry out measures that were going to improve conditions for ESA listed fish right away. Duration. These deep drawdowns are going to be implemented each fall until the injunction is lifted. We expect the injunction to be lifted at the end of December 2024, but these drawdowns may go even longer. The Corps has an EIS that's out for draft, and it's in draft form, and it's looking at operational fish passage as an interim or long-term strategy for downstream fish passage, depending on the reservoir. Deep drawdown operations and structural downstream fish passage operations are both expected to be in the new BIOP, which comes out the end of 2024. So I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this deep drawdown. So the 2 ESA listed species in the South Santiam are winter steelhead and spring chinook. Generally speaking, they're surface-oriented fish, so they tend to remain on the surface of the reservoir. In the summer, when we have a full reservoir, we can pass fish downstream by utilizing the uppermost outlet of Green Peter Dam, which is the spillway. We can pass these fish downstream by opening the spillway and releasing water. But in the winter, as you know, we draw these reservoirs down for flood control. And when we draw these reservoirs down, the surface of the reservoir is closer to the penstocks. Fish do not do well passing through the penstocks and through the turbines. And there's a lot of mortality associated with fish that pass through the turbines at Green Peter Dam. So in order to carry out our flood control mission and pass fish safely downstream of Green Peter Dam, we have started to draw down the reservoir closer to the lowest set of outlets at Green Peter, which are the regulating outlets. The fish can pass safely through the regulating outlets and downstream into the ocean. This is a diagram of typical reservoir operations in black compared to the injunction operations, which are in blue. And elevation is on the left, and the months are on the lower axis. As you can see here, and like I've told you before, we've started to draw this reservoir down to meet the injunction required operation in the summer, and we've drafted the reservoir an additional 142 feet below normal winter pool. This is another image of the drawdown. that's pretty interesting to look at. The light blue line is full reservoir elevation. This sort of medium blue is typical winter pool elevation. And then the darker blue black hatch line is the elevation and image of the reservoir as we are today. The theory behind this drawdown is by drawing Green Peter down, we have a smaller reservoir, we increase that downstream flow signal and create more riverine conditions. We reduce the depth over the available outlet, which in this case is the ROs. And again, the ROs are a safer passage route versus the turbines. We've seen elevated turbidity, as you know, because of these drawdowns. So where there used to be a lake, this medium blue line, there's now a river. That river is cutting into lake sediments that have settled over time. And with the river cutting into those sediments, we're picking up turbidity and releasing it downstream. In addition, we have newly exposed banks, and during rain events, we see bank sloughing, which is also adding to elevated turbidity. The reservoir drawdown and refill schedule. I'm going to pass this over to Selena Hart, who is our Chief of Reservoir Regulation, to talk about how we've gotten down to this targeted elevation as part of the injunction and what refill is going to look like. So Selena.
Hey, thanks, Catherine. Assuming you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, all right. All right, so on here you can see the graphic of what the Green Peter Reservoir roll curve in the red. In the brown, there is the drawdown curve, and then in the blue is the elevation at which the reservoir was at as we drew it down. So the actual drawdown date may vary. Next year, we're still trying to learn this operation, and it'll depend on how full we get Green Peter in the summer. But our goal is to be at elevation 780 by 15 November and hold it till 15 December. So that is what the court order requires us to be. So we will back calculate the timing of that drawdown based on that drawdown requirement. Next slide. This graphic is showing the proposed refill. You can see on the bottom, there's this dashed line. That is that drawdown injunction curve, and it shows that we can start refilling on December 16th. And those three different colored lines is showing probabilities. So there's a blue line, that means that there's the higher probability, and then the yellow line is the lower probability. So that green line is what we like to consider our normal average probability. So all of our models are suggesting that refill is going to be little to no impact on this drawdown, and that we expect to be back to our normal minimum by February 1st, which is when we normally start refilling from our low winter pool anyway. So we'll begin refilling on December 16th and allow the inflows to allow the reservoir to pick back up. And then we'll hold it until we are allowed to refill as normal on February 1st. And as hydrology allows, as you know, the inflows in the spring will be variable, but we want to refill Green Peter just as much as you do for all of our authorized purposes, recreation and everything, including that we do have a spill operation that happens in the summer as also for the court order. So we really do want to get that pool up. So we will do everything we possibly can to improve that refill. Next slide. And I know that you're also wondering what's going on in Foster. So Foster also will be full this summer. We will have it full between the two holidays, Labor Day weekend and Memorial Day weekend. It's just a delayed refill and an early draft per the court order. But it'll look just like what we did this year is what's shown on here. So we'll have the 2024 operations mimic the 2023. And if you want to look and see what our operations will look like in the summer, you can look on the teacups that are available for the public. You just Google Willamette teacups and you can find this graphic and you can see what kind of operations we'll plan in our releases. I believe that's all I have, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, my mic's back on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the monitoring that we're doing as part of the drawdown. We did know that we would see elevated turbidity during this drawdown. We've done drawdowns in other reservoirs in previous years and have seen elevated turbidity. And so prior to the drawdown, we funded the USGS to put in turbidity monitors downstream of many of the projects where we're doing these drawdowns. I've circled the ones that are specific to the South Santiam. This data is available on this link, and I believe we will be sharing this presentation with Kelsey and the city so that folks can get these links. Don't feel like you have to write this down really quickly, but if you Google USGS South Santiam turbidity, you can track turbidity live. These are real-time instruments that show turbidity at the various locations in this table, which are below Green Peter, near the intake for the drinking water facility, and at the face of Foster Dam, down at Waterloo. These are some of the images that you can pull off of the USGS site that show turbidity. This is the monitor just downstream of Green Peter. As you can see, there was a very large turbidity spike in early November that was had to do with finally hitting our target elevation of 780, combined with some heavy rains that occurred at the beginning of the month. Since then, turbidity has leveled off, and Greg, who from the city, talked about that earlier, that turbidity is starting to level off while still much higher than background. We are starting to see some reductions in that turbidity. And then here's turbidity in the South Santiam River near Foster. So this is where the city pulls in their water for the drinking water plant. And we're monitoring these conditions as well as the city, and are sharing information where we can. Now, a lot of you have asked, what is our lake going to look like come this summer? And while every system is different, I wanted to share some pictures of what Fall Creek Reservoir looked like in 2020 when we drew it down. The images on the left are from the drawdown, and those probably look pretty familiar to you. Very turbid water. Some would equate it to chocolate milk. And then to the right are the images of Fall Creek Reservoir when we refilled it, and turbidity dropped out, and we saw much more typical water clarity that we're used to seeing in these Willamette systems. While we have not collected any samples of the finished drinking water out of the facility there in Sweet Home, we do have some information on the quality of sediment in Green Peter Reservoir. We collected some sediment samples back in 2013 as part of a different study, and we sent those samples to a lab for analysis. And while heavy metals were detected in those samples, they were well below what the Department of Environmental Quality considers background levels. And the metals that were detected are very common in the Cascade range and common for, volcanic type sediment in soil. Here's another look at the sediment quality data as compared to our sediment evaluation framework toxicity screening levels. And the sediment evaluation framework toxicity screening levels are typically for dredged materials, but I thought it would be of value to compare the results from the sediment that we sampled in Green Peter to these screening levels. And as you can see, you can hardly pick up on some of the levels in these graphs. They were well below levels of concern for pesticides or heavy metals. Again, we did pick up some pesticides. Most of these were a result of historic spraying of DDT. That stuff stays in the environment for a long time. And then again, some heavy metals that are just associated with our volcanic soils. But again, all of these levels very, very low and below levels of concern for human health. Lastly, we're also monitoring water temperature. And while this doesn't address the concerns of turbidity, and while most of you are at this meeting, this is another parameter that we are looking at from a water quality perspective and in relation to the ESA and other fish that reside downstream of these dams. This is a tangled mess for sure. What I want you to focus on is this bolded gray line. And with the drawdown of green peter, we did see very relatively high water temperatures as a result of the drawdown. What we ended up doing was destratifying green peter before it had a chance to cool off in the fall and winter. And that warm water was sent downstream, and certainly is it warrants some further thought when it comes to the design and implementation of this operation moving forward. These temperatures are certainly a stress to the fish incubating downstream of the dam, and it's something that we want to dig into a little more. So while turbidity is something that we're monitoring and want to wrap our arms around, temperature is another water quality parameter of much interest to us at the Corps. And so I would like to pass this over to Greg Taylor. He's going to talk a little bit more about the fish monitoring and other biological monitoring going on. Greg.
Thanks, Catherine. Can folks hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. So my name is Greg Taylor. I'm a fisheries biologist for the Corps of Engineers. I've worked for the Corps for 22 years here at the Willamette Project. Prior to that, I worked for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. So I've worked my entire professional career in the Willamette Basin. I think the first thing that I want to stress to folks and just acknowledge is that when we do operations at these dams to help fish, there are not silver bullets. There are not easy answers. There are not easy solutions to managing these dams in a way that improves the status of these fish. And so every operation that we do or take has a set of impacts and it has a set of benefits. Catherine just showed some of the water temperature. Temperatures below Foster, that's an impact. Here, obviously the design drawdown was to help juvenile fish passage, both more fish pass downstream and more of those target fish to pass safely. So there are trade-offs that occur when we do these operations. That is the bottom line. Sometimes that's between species. Sometimes it's within a species. Something we do at the dam is good for adults. It would be bad for small fish or juveniles of the same species. And sometimes those trade-offs are between our authorized purposes. And it's just really important to understand. And the thing I want to say to everyone is that I just want to be clear that there are not easy solutions, but we're working as hard as we can to identify solutions. Next slide, please. So we are conducting, and if you guys, I know a lot of you have been up to the dam, and you've seen various things that we're doing up there to try to monitor these operations for fish. And so some of you probably seen these traps that are below the dam, sitting in the tail race down below Green Peter. We've got nets in the reservoir. And we've got a whole lot of fish, thousands of fish that are tagged with different types of tagging technology. And so we're trying to figure out how the fish are distributed in these reservoirs, the timing of fish moving into the reservoirs, how long they stay in the reservoir, their abundance. And then most importantly, the thing that we'll be looking at is we go down through this drawdown operation, of course, is how many fish really do pass downstream and what's their survival. That ends up being the bottom line. You have to get the fish out and they have to survive. If they don't, then the operation won't work. And so we're using a whole variety of techniques, different contractors to assess that. I think we've talked about this already, but we have requirements to report this stuff to the court twice a year. All that stuff will be documented in those reports, and then the more detailed reports will be ultimately put together by contractors to assess this operation. In 25 years of doing this, one thing I know is that you always end up going back and modifying operations when you put them in place. And I'm certain that will be the case in this particular case as well, that there'll be a need to go back and modify the operation, try to improve it, try to make it better than it has been today. So next slide. So I know there's a lot of questions around the resident fish. So those are the fish that are staying in reservoir or staying in freshwater near Green Peter or Foster Reservoir for their entire lives. And some of the non-native fish that are not listed in the Endangered Species Act. Like Catherine mentioned, we've done these types of drawdowns in a number of locations around the Willamette Basin for a variety of reasons, sometimes for fish reasons, sometimes for maintenance purposes, sometimes to construct a new feature at the dam. There's been a whole variety of reasons that we've done these drawdowns. Suspended sediment, I don't need to tell anybody this. You all know, you're out there looking at this. Suspended sediment, like we're seeing, can affect fish. Bottom line. It can affect their gills. It can affect their feeding. Everywhere we've done this, where the turbidity's been like this, the effects have been sublethal. We haven't seen mortality directly associated with the turbidity. We certainly have seen mortality associated with dam passage, but not necessarily with the turbidity itself. So we expect that. We do have the hatchery fish that are part of our mitigation program down below Foster. They're in ponds. So we're monitoring them closely since we have our hands on them and we're able to look at them. And so we're monitoring all that, assessing that, and trying to understand what the impacts are on all the species, including the ESA listed species that we're targeting with the drawdown operation. Next slide. Okay, in summary, the Corps is under a court order to conduct this drawdown at Green Peter. And we've done these types of drawdowns in a number of locations around the basin. In those locations, we have seen improved fish passage and improved fish passage survival where we've done these drawdowns. We expect that to work at Green Peter, but we're going to evaluate it and see how it plays out. So we're collecting that information now. We'll make those evaluations and then move forward. Obviously, we have high levels of turbidity. Catherine mentioned that based on previous sampling that the sediment is clean. It's below the toxic screening levels. When we've done these drawdowns in the past, as I mentioned previously, the turbidity, we've never seen fish kills associated with the turbidity itself. We have seen fish die associated with fish passage, but never any direct mortality associated with the turbidity itself. We have seen impacts to fish, gills, reduced feeding, etc. We're going to be refilling the reservoir starting December 16th. That refill will be dependent on what inflow is, but we are expected to go back up to our minimum conservation pool by early February. That's the normal date we would start the refill. We have a requirement to get the reservoir up to reach our spillway gates for our spring spill operation that we're doing. And so in Foster, I think we presented that information as well. We'll refill by Memorial Day, stay full all summer long, and then be drawn down as it always is in the late fall and winter. Next slide. So next steps, obviously, this is the first year of the deep drawdown. This operation was developed as part of the litigation by a group of folks that worked to develop this drawdown to specifically pass fish, as Catherine kind of laid out in the diagram, with the existing infrastructure that we have at Green Peter Dam. We're going to work with other agencies and tribes to monitor this, obviously, figure out if it's working. Is it actually accomplishing what it needs to accomplish? Is it meeting some of the biological goals that we have for improved fish passage efficiency and for improved fish passage survival? And then we'll report that out to the court and to everyone else so that they can look at this and understand what we've seen based on the monitoring that we conducted. And then we'll move forward and continue to implement this down the road. So I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate everyone listening. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Just a couple of other things that didn't get said specifically, but I know have been circulating in social media. This drawdown is not the result of a dam safety issue and is not causing a dam safety issue. We are monitoring the drawdown very closely for its effects on the dam. And I think where that comes from, folks that are going out there in the summer are used to seeing some seepage that we have coming off the face of the dam. That's a result of a failed water stop that we have. So we are taking advantage of the pool being down to try to address the seepage that we have coming through the dam and that failed water stop. But what we're doing is not related to a dam safety issue. The other, and I think persistent rumor, is that this is the result or is an effort at dam removal. And I can definitively say to you, we have not been tasked with looking at dam removal at any level. This is about fish passage. And I think where some of that confusion comes from, and it gets very hard to separate a lot of these complex issues. Some of you were in Salem and probably online last week when we were talking about the future of hydropower in the Willamette system. And we have been tasked by Congress to assess the future federal interest of hydropower in the Willamette. But that is one of several authorized purposes, and flood risk management being our primary purpose. So after the meeting, if folks have questions around that federal determination on hydropower, happy to talk with you about it. But I just wanted to make sure that folks knew those two things. This is not a dam safety issue. This is not a dam removal question. This is about what you just heard, us attempting to do better in terms of fish passage and be in compliance with the court order.
You're passing a bunch of dead fish.
Yeah, this is the proposed operation until we have an alternative. And what Greg said, and I think that's what we can speak to now. We will look to refine and improve on this operation in future years. It's the best answer I can give you, sir.
So we have somebody else online who would like to speak into this, and his name is Mark Sherwood. Adam, would you find him, please? Mark, you should be able to unmute yourself at this time.
Good evening. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay. Thank you. My name is Mark Sherwood, and I'm the Executive Director of the Native Fish Society. On behalf of Native Fish Society, Northwest Environmental Defense Center, and Wild Earth Guardians, I really appreciate the opportunity to offer up a few comments this evening. First of all, I want to recognize the concerns that have been expressed here tonight with respect to the drawdown at Green Peter Reservoir. You know, seeing muddy water in the Santiam River and Foster Lake has understandably been distressing for the community, and I can only imagine what it's been like for Sweet Home residents to observe discolored water in their homes. The Army Corps and the environmental community should have done a better job in communicating regarding the impacts of the drawdown. That said, the drawdowns are critical to our collective efforts to restore abundant wild fish in the Willamette Basin. For too long, dams like Green Peter have blocked native salmon from moving up and down the river from their upstream spawning grounds to the Pacific. The scientific and biological community have long supported deep reservoir drawdowns because they have been shown to be a cost-effective means of promoting effective fish passage. For example, there's been a 10-fold increase in salmon as a result of drawdowns at Fall Creek Dam, which is also in the Willamette Basin. While we continue to support the drawdown operations as an essential measure to recovering endangered salmon, it is also critical that the locally impacted communities should not be solely responsible for bearing the burdens of any unintended consequences of this first year of drawdowns. Everyone deserves clean water, and the residents of Sweet Home are no exception. We strongly support the efforts by our elected representatives to provide relief for impacted communities in the short term, including resources to ensure that Sweet Home can continue to provide its award-winning clean water while these critical measures for wild fish move forward. Looking ahead, it appears that we have gotten through the worst of it as turbidity levels in the Santiam below Green Peter have already dropped by nearly 90% from their earlier peak. And based on the data from previous drawdown measures in other reservoirs like Fall Creek and at Cougar Reservoir, we anticipate that turbidity levels in future years will not be as high as those seen during this first year of drawdowns. We also believe there may be changes to drawdown operations going forward, which we heard Greg Taylor kind of make reference to. These things typically change and are refined. Despite the issues that we have seen with this initial drawdown, deep drawdowns remain more effective and much more cost effective than other fish passage measures proposed by the Corps. Again, we believe that our elected representatives should act quickly to ensure towns like Sweet Home are not left responsible for impacts in these drawdowns. The cost of mitigating the impacts to local communities pales in comparison to the staggering multi-billion-dollar price tag of a few of the Corps' proposals. This is the time we would encourage all of us to work together toward a holistic solution that benefits our communities, our wild fish, and our rivers. We need to move forward from this point to identify solutions to the new challenges that are emerging while we continue to take necessary measures to protect our rivers and wild fish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We now would ask for Commissioner Nyquist to potentially come up and join us.
When do the people online get to ask a question?
Sir, please submit your questions and we will be responding to them.
How are we supposed to do that? The little texting option to do so won't let you do it.
It's not working.
They don't want to hear from us.
Testing.
They've been kicking us offline. Why didn't Sweet Home fight this from the beginning?
I'll just tell y'all.
No injunction? Why do we have a city attorney? Why do we have a city attorney?
So that was hard to take. There are kids in the room, so I'm not going to tell you what I really think of that last presentation.
You're hard to take.
I will, thank you. I will tell you that tomorrow on the Board of Commissioners agenda, is a discussion and possible action to begin the litigation process to ask the judge to modify his order.
Sir, seeing that we
Kinda
cannot
late.
submit questions,
That's all I
seeing
got.
that we
Thank
cannot
you.
submit questions, may I?
So how do we as a community countersue?
So thank you very much, Commissioner, and I will be at that meeting as well.
They
and
don't
the
wanna
City
hear
of
from the
Sweet Home is with
community.
you with that as well. So
Are we able to ask a question? My hand's been up for like an hour. I'm being very respectful, but I have a
Okay.
legitimate question.
So we have a lot of legitimate questions. All of us do. So we have the stacks of questions here. And we have other questions that were collected before this meeting. We'd like to receive all of your questions. If you're online, you can submit your questions in the chat. You can submit your questions in the email. With hundreds of people participating in this, we need to gather your questions, but we don't have the time to answer all your questions tonight.
Bro.
So those that are online, please know that people here are not asking questions either. And people in the audience, you need to know that you need to write your questions down. I'm going to be here afterwards. There's going to be other elected officials here afterwards. And we do plan on addressing the questions and giving you answers. And as we
Change
said,
the
Adam,
elected
could you put
official.
up what our next steps are, that slide, if you
Change
can
them.
get to it. We have next steps that we will be looking into litigation. We have partners we are researching what we can do with the litigation. We are
How long is
asking you
litigation gonna
questions.
be going on? Because my children's hands are burning off.
Dude, they just mute you because
So-
they don't want to hear us.
if anyone does have any medical concerns, please submit them to us in writing along with
Exactly,
any
muted
type
me
of
again.
doctors so that we can take a look at that. Thank you.
We are going to review and answer
Water
all your
has more-
questions, and we're
more
going to
chlorine
post them
than a pool does.
online. We are going to schedule more additional information sessions. We're going to continue to test the water and post the water testing results online and on our Facebook page. We're going to continue to have discussions with necessary parties to move forward to a solution. And we would like to see, as a city, we would like to see this not happen again next year. And we're going to do our best to work towards that solution in any way we can. All of
I'd
us
like it dealt
have
with
decided
this
on
year.
that. And developing a path to go forward that will benefit our community. And even though the reservoirs are not within city limits, they are still a part of who we are. And so we plan to take care of those. Thank you. Thank you
Really,
for
'cause a
being
little bit
here.
ago you said it's not we can't within our limits.
No responsibility.
Just like any politician. They don't want to hear from the community.
I reached out to tribal people. I'm a Confederated Tribal Grand Ron, and we took it to good people, and we brought up the sense of the voiceless, and we're talking about nature and the wildlife. So we wrote a little something to bring to y'all, and I hope it impacts us to continue the fight to protect our waters and our wildlife and our communities and loved ones. The voiceless. When will we truly listen to nature's call? To the ones that are the most purest of all. The birds that fly, to the many fish that swim, to the salamander newts on the ridge side, to the wildlife that live in this ecosystem.
You killed them all.
Water, as wildlife knows, is alive. Without clean water, no one can survive. Our wildlife cried when they
Not clean water down
with the lowering of the water and dams.
You killed them all.
Their homes pillaged, their lives taken due to the government and environmentalist plans. You see, we love all life and we do want the salmon to thrive, but to save one, should many have to die? The people who made these plans don't roam these woods, rivers, or lakes. If they did, they would know that a court-ordered experiment is not safe. The water is
Whose
hurting,
pockets got
the
lined with?
ecosystem collapsing, and the ones who live here understand. Maybe the hydropower and salmon idea are disguised for a more wicked plan. The eagles and osprey can't hunt. The deer and elk can't drink. Treated, but dead water now flows through our kitchen sinks. We ask you, environmentalists and judge, is this water safe for you to consume? Please come to Sweet Home. Try the water for yourself. You have nothing to lose. And while you're here, come see the environmental results from your plans. Maybe then
They like to kick us
you'll
off.
hear nature's call before their voices end. Great Spirit, protect our waters, our wildlife, and our community. Let karma justice be served to those who cause such harm, and let them feel what nature feels. With that being said, God bless us all. Amen.
So that was Clint from the
When are you
Grand
gonna answer
Ron's
people's
tribe, and I just
questions?
wanted to thank Clint for coming forward to speaking regarding that. With that, we're going to wrap up this meeting. Thank you for attending.
Also, we attended you answer nobody's questions.
Are you going to address the people who are sick or the pets that are dying?
Nope, they're just gonna run away.
It's pretty
obvious
they got no answers.
Are you guys going to reimburse me for my vet bills? I just had to spend $300 today.
I'd like to know why they didn't fight this in court when it came down back in 2021. That's what I'd like to know.
We all
Why are they
need
gonna?
to unite and countersue. It's the only option. This is complete bullshit. They're on the other side. They don't want to hear us. They don't care about us. The little video of them drinking the tap water is clearly fucking filtered.
They keep kicking
and it's
me
a
off.
horseshit.
I agree.
I'm sending
No.
Get real because you're not.
How do
let
we
one
countersue this activist group that's unnamed and there's no one accountable from that side of the group? It's just, oh, somebody says bad for the fish, got shut down a whole fucking lake for no reason. It's complete bullshit.
Yep. The whole city
Socialism 101.
bullshit.
There's so much they could have done, but yet they just ignored everything and they're ignoring everybody's complaints.
Oh, according to these tap level waters from 10 years ago.
I like that one too. The water is so bad that we had to call in equipment to have it tested because our equipment is old.
Are we going to forget when they had the sewer water and our drinking water mixed?
Well, I want to know what kind of filters they have on City Hall. I've been in Sweet Home nearly my whole life, and I've been getting those cards for water from day one. Every month. Anybody that's lived here for over 30 years remembers the cards we used to get from the water department. This is bad. We need to get rid of everybody at City Hall and put in new people. Bunch of Democrats, bunch of socialist Democrats is all they are. Sweet Home City Council, they are the environmentalists too. Oh yeah. 100%. Why didn't they get their pockets lined? Yeah, why didn't they file an injunction way back when this was you?
It was ran by fucking Republicans, you dick.
Who's running the state and the country right now, asshole? You fucking fuck you, you fucking commie. You should come down to City Hall. Come to City Hall and say that in a small town, bitch. That's what I thought.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Raven Rambo, answer me, Johnny. I'm being auto muted still. No, I hear you. Oh no, they're auto muting me right now. It's funnier than hell. Somebody in the council still in the group.
Will we all be getting a question, the questions and answers that people submitted? Will we all be getting a copy of that?
Probably not. The meeting's over.
Well, yeah, I mean, when they review them all and they do them all.
Probably
not. They didn't even answer one single question.
No, not there.
The only reason why they're doing this is because they put them all down on paper so we can ignore them.
They don't have any answers. That's why.
Right.
They
said
don't.
that
The
they
reason
would
they're
post
doing
them on
it because they don't
Facebook.
want you guys to ask.
Everyone has rights to meetings minutes. Everybody get a copy of them. They have to report it.
Just remember, they don't care about us. The only reason why they're doing a meeting like this to begin with is because they don't want us to be able to ask questions and they don't want to give us answers.
Right. Well, hopefully they'll
That's why there's only
give us
88 people.
And you know that there's no way they're going to answer a question. They're going to pick the ones that they want to answer, and